Hey everyone, today I'm going live with Christian Joy. She's a costume designer with quite a background and quite a future, and man, just a cool, self-trained, badass woman who has done a ton. So while I have her coming on, I'll tell you just some of the things. She's been featured in a major museum in London. She's had a partnership with Topshop. She's collaborated with Intel. She's major bands. She is amazing. So let's meet her and ask her questions and keep building her following and learn about who she is and how she works. I'm really excited. I'm wearing the only costume I had, which is this kimono. And I used to have so many costumes, and I'm just not even in my home, so I don't even have the chance for my whole wardrobe to show up here. I'm waiting for her to come on. I hope everything's good with her connection. And also, Christian, if you're watching me, I just need to tell you that you got to do it from your phone, because sometimes people try to join lives from their computer and it doesn't work. So on my end, it says, I'm waiting for you. Let's see if I can just invite you and see. But I do know that if you're on your computer, it won't work. Oh, it says connecting. Hi. Hey. Hi.
Good.
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thanks.
I have so many questions. What are you working on now? What are the projects on your desk?
Right now I've just been mainly making masks because I'm getting so many requests for them. So that's kind of something I've been doing. And then, that's kind of, that's honestly like it. It's just, I've been doing that and then kind of trying to work on, making new paintings and things. So just kind of going with the flow, I guess. It's been a little bit of a tough trying to do it, but it's starting to make it happen. So
yeah. Do you I see that your masks are sold out on your website. Mm-hmm. Are those collages that you're selling that I've been eyeing, are they all one of a kind if we buy them?
Yeah, they're all one of a kind. So each one is like kind of these cutout shapes, and then I create them like that. So yeah, all of those are the collages.
So all right. So the way I came across you is I was reading Meet Me in the Bathroom, where you are interviewed, and I was sort of looking into like the 2000s and like the New York music scene. Is that a time that you feel was like one of your favorite times in life?
Yeah. I mean, it was such a special time that's like, I think like, yeah, definitely. I mean, I had so much fun, and, it was kind of this, the moment for my career to begin and to really make a lot of new friends and just sort of, have a really funny and fun time. You know, I mean, pretty wild, it's definitely, it was a unique moment. So it's good.
I like how you described in one of your interviews, like you saw Karen on stage and you were like, whoa, this is the something I was sort of waiting to happen growing up in Iowa. Do you feel like you get that feeling a lot, or was that sort of like a once in a lifetime feeling of like, this is going to propel my life?
No, I've never had that feeling since then. I mean, I think that was just that moment. I kind of had been, I just kind of always had this feeling like, oh, I'm going to move to New York. Something really amazing is going to happen. And I just remember standing there in the audience, and she's so funny. She used to yell my name from stage all the time, and I would get super embarrassed. And so she was yelling it, and I just remember like looking up on the stage and just thinking, God, they're just going to be, I just knew they were going to take off. And I knew somehow I had become this part of it. So it was like a really exciting feeling. I mean, I just knew,
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel when I look at your collages. I'm just like, like my boyfriend was napping next to me, and I was just looking at all your thumbprints all over the internet. And I'm just like, this woman, like, I love about you that what I can see from your background online is like you're self-trained, right? Like you didn't go to fashion school.
No.
And that like when you started, you were like using a glue gun and like cutting up things from antique boutique where you worked, and they were prom dresses, and you used sequins and kind of slashed things and highlighted things. And do you still go about things in such a sort of tenacious way? Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to create something in my imagination?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sometimes I do get, I mean, I'm not probably, yeah, no, I do. I mean, I think I just kind of go for it, you know, because it's like, you kind of have to, I guess. And it's just sort of like, yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, it's like I started to paint kind of last year, and I, you know, it's something that I'd always wanted to do was start painting. And I always thought like, well, I can't do it. You know, I don't really know. I'm not a very good drawer and all this stuff. And then I started to think about this Klaus Oldenburg, like cardboard cutout that I had seen at the MoMA, my husband and I did, and how blown away we were by it. We were just like so excited when we saw it. And so I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to make, like, I had read that Jerry Saltz article where he was like, you know, kind of like copy who you love or whatever. So I went ahead and I was like, I'm going to copy that thing. So I had made the cardboard cutout. And then I kind of realized like, oh, if I can do this, I could probably paint, because it's just about using shape and stuff like that. So I think like, you know, it's kind of like always been like sort of figuring out a way to get to where I want to be, you know, and in you know, my creative process. So, and just getting, you know, I think there's many ways to do it. You know, you don't have to do it just that one singular way. That path.
Did you have an experience in life of like needing to liberate yourself creatively? I mean, I know you've spoken about like growing up in like a born again Christian household, which doesn't necessarily conflict with creativity at all. So I don't want to assume that your parents weren't encouraging creativity. So like, was it for you like a stepping away from childhood and liberating yourself, or were you sort of free from the beginning?
I was pretty free from the beginning. My mom is super creative. And I mean, really, I have her to thank for, you know, just being, you know, being as innovative, or, you know, like trying new things. And, you know, I mean, there's like 6 kids in our family. So she was always trying new things to kind of like, you know, push us forward and just feed us, you know? So it's like, you know, so she was very creative with that. But I think like, you know, in high school and stuff, I was like an athlete. So I think, you know, I started to get into music, probably my junior year. And then that kind of was like what propelled me into like wanting to be creative and make things. So, and then, yeah, I definitely went through many years of like feeling very tortured and like I didn't know what I was doing. And then really it just all kind of came together when I came to New York. And you know, I think that moment was sort of like, okay, this is that moment that I've always wanted, where I wanted to live here. And so now I need to really just go for it. So,
yeah. And then like, when did you start becoming acquainted with a sewing machine? And like, which resources helped you to become better at it? Because I just started using it and I've just been like tearing through like nightgowns, and like, I can't say I'm great at it. And I'm using a lot of thread, but it's so, where did you start with the sewing machine?
Someone gave me a sewing machine, and then I just kind of, I mean, actually at first I was like hand sewing, and then I had taken, you know, like sewing classes in high school, and I wasn't very good at it, but I guess I just kind of started to do it. And then I bought a lot of books, actually. So, I mean, you know, I think the internet's great, but I also think like just having a lot of books is really, you know, a great thing as well, you know, and just being able to see things and looking at things and how they're made and stuff like that. So, I think there's just, yeah, you just kind of got to go for it.
Yeah.
You know? I think.
You've used such amazing fabrics. It's not the first thing I mean, it's one of the first things, I guess, that you notice when you look at your body of work is like the amazing fabrics that you've been able to find. So are you like a big thrift shopper? Do you buy things online? Where do you find all your fabrics?
Well, I make all my fabrics. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Not every single one of them, but like, most of the time, if I'm making something like a costume for someone, I'll create like a whole print for them. So I make I screen print everything. So most of what you see like, is probably just hand printed, that I hand printed it myself.
Yeah.
So
do you get requests, like, have you gotten requests to like do like bridesmaids dresses and things that are like you don't end up doing and you say no to? Like, what are the kinds of things you say no to?
I don't like doing like gowns and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I think like, it just, I mean, I've done, I worked with a friend of mine who's a really amazing like tailor on, Karen O's gown for the Oscars. But I think like, I was like, God, I never need to do this ever again. It's like, it's just not really what I love. And it definitely takes a certain kind of talent and person to be able to create something like that. So I'd say things like that I'm not super into, but I'll kind of, try anything, for the most part.
Do you, like when you think of the word punk, is it like a word that you have a lot of feelings about? Do you identify with that word?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the reason that like I started to do things the way I did was because, when I first moved here, I was working at this store on 6th Street. And, I was always thinking about like the New York punks, and like I was reading a lot about them, like that book, Please Kill Me, it kind of talks about how they were all just kind of doing things and just making it happen on their own, and not going to school for it. Or like John Waters, like someone like him. So it's like, to me, punk definitely had an influence, but I think like it was more like kind of that New York centric punk of like, just kind of showing up and doing things and just trying it, so I think that's more, how I feel about it or feel about punk.
I like that you also started to mention like DIY and just how the two terms are very connected.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a chef for a long time and like not trained, and I can't say I had like a community around me who was doing that, but like one or two other chefs who felt that way.
Yeah.
What does like DIY mean in your life now, and what did it mean to you when you were 20 years old?
Yeah, I guess DIY when I was 20 was more sort of just like slapping it together and sort of just, putting it together in whatever way possible, where I think like, and even the term DIY, I think has kind of changed, I don't, a lot of people call it like makers, or I don't know what all the new words are for it, but like, to me, DIY was like just more kind of like just hectic, and really doing it yourself, and that it would be really like this like kind of interesting, very tangible piece of clothing or a book, or you know what I'm saying, and it wasn't really about you making it like the most beautiful thing, that's like on par with like something that's been done in a factory, it's kind of just to have it more be like this art piece, I think, at least. And so I think like, but now DIY, I guess it's like I think it's probably the same, it's just figuring it out and trying it, and so
I think like, I mean, we can try to break down like your creative philosophy, and that's awesome, but I also want to acknowledge like you're obviously incredibly hardworking, and I think anybody who's joining this call can relate to that experience of working hard at something. So do you have certain like rules you play by in your own work life and creative life? Like I wake up every morning and create at a certain time, or I sketch at certain hours.
I usually kind of work like about 11 to 7, each day. And then, and I try to work every day. I mean, I try to take a couple days off too, so I start going crazy, but like, I try to, at least, maybe if I'm like not painting or printing or making clothes, it's like, maybe I'm like writing or, just doing something. Cause I think, what it ultimately comes down to is if you have the work and then someone asks you for something, it's like you have this back body of work, that you're able to present. And I think it's important to constantly be working and just constantly having new pieces, so.
Yeah. Is that something that's like, I was interviewing a woman who's a freelance writer the other day, and a lot of it is like pitching. Is it different in your world in that it's a lot of getting requests more so than it is pitching ideas?
Yeah, most of it's like requests. Like, I don't think I've really ever pitched an idea, which is probably pretty lazy of me, but it's like, but I think like, a lot of it's requests or, I mean, or just putting things up and having people, purchase them directly for me. So, I should probably be better about pitching things. People have mentioned that to me, and I'm always like, oh God.
Well, I feel like you're just you're like one of our cultural unicorns in the sense that like it took off in such an authentic way, but I don't want to undermine the fact that it took a ton of work to get to where you are.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that you don't have to pitch, that you get a lot of requests, you know, that I think your mask idea is awesome. And I'm sorry the masks are sold out, but it's nice how it sounds like you just respond to the time and create what you want. And there's an audience that's there usually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's something about what this moment, that's things that are, you know, this particular moment I found really like, kind of like, it's great to be able to like give people what they need, you know, and at the same time, it's a little heartbreaking, you know, in this weird way, you know, where it's like, because it's so surreal and you're making these objects like, you know, available to people, but then you're like, God, it's so weird, you know, that this is, like someone put like on my Instagram, oh, I'm so excited to finally have a piece of your work. And I was like, oh man, that's so crazy. Like, you know, like it's not a pair of socks. It's like this thing that you kind of need. And it's really just, it's kind of bizarre, and to kind of think about that, you know, I guess. In a way.
No, I think Heartbreak is a bit, I mean, that's what I spent the morning doing, just feeling utterly heartbroken. And we have all different reasons for it happening. But I mean, like, is that part of your, like, have you come to understand like pain and heartbreak as part of your creative experience as a woman and an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I feel like for the most part, I always kind of try to like project this feeling of like, how, you know, joyfulness and happiness. And it's just like, and so I think it's, you know, I mean, not a lot. I mean, I think it's, you know, I think it's hard because it's like, yeah, you do experience that heartbreak, and, you know, like if you have something that maybe didn't work, it feels really bad. But I think this is like a particular level where it's just like, it's so insane. And like, you're like, here you go, world. Here's this, you know, thing, you know, this is what I can give you right now. And it's just kind of, it's interesting to be a part of that, I guess. So.
What I've learned about people asking questions is that I should ask them now in case they have to run. So for instance, you got, if it wasn't for Karen, how else could you have broken into the business?
I think I probably would have just had to like, I don't actually know. I mean, honestly, I think it's a lot of luck. You know, that's something that I've always thought was like, I was just very lucky. I did have a lot of people that were very encouraging of me, even before I started working with the Yeah. So I think like, you know, I just started to like, I was making things already and I was putting them in stores, and people were buying them. And, you know, it was kind of, for me, it was like this, like, oh, I can't believe that people are actually buying this stuff. So I think, you know, it was more, again, like about having the work, and the work was available, and just putting it out there. So I think like, I mean, it ultimately is just a lot of luck. And also one thing I say is like, have a group of friends, you know, because it's like the fortunate thing with working with the EIS was that they were able to kind of like bring me along with them, you know. And so, but then, you know, they were also able to bring like other bands or other people, video makers. So it's like, it's important to have a good core group of friends, I think, too.
Well, I love also that you've mentioned, like, you mentioned it in this conversation, but also in other interviews, like Karen made a point, and it was like kind of to your horror at first, to say your name and say, thank you, Christian Joy, for the costumes. And I think that's such a good thing for all of us to remember, like what you can do for someone else's career just by publicly thanking them for how they've participated in what you're doing. Because I'm sure there are a lot of costume designers that don't get the recognition or the possibilities because nobody has publicly thanked them. What's your favorite project you've done so far? That's a nice question.
Oh, God. You know, I mean, I guess, you know, it's always like, oh, my favorite project. Well, my favorite project was making the skeleton suit for Karen, like super early on, because I think that what sort of took me into this different direction of where I had always really wanted to go. So I think like that's in my mind is like my favorite project, because because before that I was kind of like trying to figure things out, and then I kind of came to this point where I was like, oh, I can use paint and I can use all these different, you know, items to kind of work, you know. So am I frozen?
I can hear you, but you're frozen visually, but you'll come back. You are, but you'll come back. It's just the camera. Can you hear me? Okay. There you are.
Okay.
Yay. Do you have an experience, like, do you make do you ever feel like scared to put something out? Like you make it, like an example with like a poet would be like you write a ton about sex and you're like scared your parents would read it, or like, does that ever happen with costumes, that there's something that feels explicit or daring or vulnerable?
For me, it's not scary. I would imagine it's probably scary for whoever has to wear it. You know, I mean, I think, you know, I always just kind of like shoot from the hip, you know, and just sort of hope like, oh, I hope, you know, like this will fly. I mean, I think like really it's about having someone who's like willing to be a part of your adventure, you know, that you're having in your mind. And, you know, I mean, that was always the great thing about, you know, working with Karen, is that, you know, I would just show up with something and be like, hey, here's your outfit, and she would wear it on stage.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, that's like the most ultimate kind of collaboration of just like, you never know where it's going to go, you know, and so it's a lot, you know.
Did you, like, when I look at the work you've done, I feel like you have not been drained or like sold out, or like, you know, have you had moments in your life where someone was like, hey, I'll give you this job, and you were like tempted to take it, but you kind of knew that it would change you?
Not really. No. No, not so much. Like I don't get a lot.
I can't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Back.
No, I don't think so. Is my internet working weird?
Possibly, or mine. But you're getting a little pause. Yeah, the interest itself maybe protects you from some of those offers. Like they know you're a costume designer, so how normal can it get, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, like, for instance, like in 2002, you did a solo show during New York Fashion Week. You know, you probably brushed up against at least like the Alexander Wangs and the McQueens and like, you know, maybe even some of the more normal, less artistic and out there avant-garde designers. Did you, you know, get requests to do like a mainstream line? I know you did a line for Topshop. How did all that feel for you?
Yeah, that was fun. Actually, the Topshop thing was fun. I did do a line, I think in like 2008, I did like a line, and I did another one as well. And, you know, what I kind of realized was like, I was like struggling trying to kind of create these lines, and like, wasn't super excited about them because I was like, oh, it just feels like I'm not getting to really reach my creative goals with it, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, ultimately I wasn't making that much money on it. You know, I would make money, put back into the clothing line. And I was just like, right away, I was like, you know, this isn't what I want to do. I mean, it's just, I just wasn't that interested in it. And really what I want to do is make, you know, magnificent pieces, you know, not like kind of t-shirts. And so, yeah, to me, I was like immediately like, you know what, I can make just as much money doing stuff. So yeah,
I mean, it's interesting that you know, after 2008 with the Topshop thing, you go right into the solo exhibition in 2009, which seemed like totally creative and out there. It sounds like you asked people their definition of a female being, and you created costumes based on each response.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just thought it would be fun to kind of do I mean, you know, since it's like collaborative in many ways, that it would be fun to do something that, you know, kind of, you know, like, and to try to kind of what I see in my mind as what they're asking for. So that it was fun, you know, to be able to do that.
Yeah. Christian, I'm so sorry, but I keep losing you. Is there like a better place in your home maybe, or for Wi-Fi?
Let me see.
I think we might as well try something.
Is this better? I'm right next to it now.
Let's see.
Sometimes
let's see.
Weird. Is it better?
It seems to be so far.
Okay.
I loved seeing when I was researching you this morning, I was like, you know, you're in your 40s now. And I love to ask women, like, how do you see creatively your 20s, your 30s, your 40s? What are the differences for you?
I feel like in my 20s, I was maybe a little more just going for it. You know, I wasn't really thinking about it, I think, as hard, where, you know, I was just sort of like putting these things out, you know, you don't have the same, you know, you're not seeing things as much. So it's like, you know, you don't know what happened before, you know, so you're not worrying about that, you know, or you're not looking at things, or you're not well taught. So it doesn't really matter if it looks like crap. You know what I'm saying? So I think like in my 20s, sort of like going for it without really thinking about like, is this well made, or is this like, you know, like this? And I think, you know, there's just a different energy that you put out that's like that really quick, crazy, hectic kind of energy. Whereas I think, you know, in my 30s, it started to kind of like, I don't know, maybe become a little more refined. And then now it's just, I think it's like, it depends, you know, like the costume designs may be a little more refined, but I think like doing the other things are maybe just are a little more hectic, like maybe the paintings and stuff like that, because, you know, once again, I'm like in the beginning processes is where I'm trying to like teach myself something.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I mean, do you see yourself painting more and more and creating more like flat form art?
Yeah. I mean, decade? Yeah, really my favorite thing to do is to create sort of like the textiles and stuff for all the costumes. That's really my favorite part of making them. So I always kind of thought like, well, why, you know, maybe I should try to do more, you know, just like artwork and stuff. So that's why I started to paint, was I wanted to start to play with those, you know, elements. And it's really what's, you know, I think for me, like costume design and fashion sort of happened by accident. You know, it wasn't really what I was like totally my ultimate goal. You know, my ultimate goal was always to be an artist, and it kind of came through fashion and costume design. So, which is something I love, you know, so it's like, I love all of it. I just wish I could do it all. I
want to get your collages. I love them. I love them so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The one I love the most is the biggest one. Well, there are two big ones, and then there are the little ones.
Yeah.
Those are so beautiful, and I feel like you are so amazing.
Thanks.
What has it been? I know that you were just this past weekend, you were in Vogue.
Yeah.
What was, do you know who it was on staff who was following you that found your image, or?
Yeah, I think there's a few people on, there that I know. So I think like, you know, they've always been super supportive. You know, those friends. And I think, you know, it's like Vogue.com, I think it's changed a lot, where it's like, they're much more open to, you know, lots of different people creating. Whereas I think before, you know, is maybe just like advertisers, you know, to be in Vogue, it's like more about advertisers and stuff. So I think like, it's really fun to like now kind of see that they've sort of opened up the doors, you know, and sort of are like, you know, showing a lot of different work by a lot of different people, you know, instead of it being like just Chanel or, you know, or Prada or, you know, things like that.
Yeah. Cool. Have you done anything with FIT and Parsons? Have they like approached you to have you teach or anything like that?
I've actually been, a friend of mine teaches at Parsons, and I'll kind of go in there and speak with people, you know, the kids, the students there. And so I've done, you know, some like, I did a critique at Parsons pretty recently. So you know, I'll do little things like that. And, yeah, I kind of was like kind of thinking about teaching, because I do enjoy it. I like that age group of like people in like their early 20s, you know, or late teens, because I think they're really ready to go for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you would be so awesome. And I think that's a really good point about the age group. Someone's asking, what kind of paint do you use for fabric? And I'm just going to grab my coffee. Hold on.
Sure. I just use Speedball ink, fabric screen printing ink.
I love that you make your own fabric, and that's one of your favorite things to do. So nice. I also like, just want to say, I mean, you've been called in 2010 on the cover of Time Out New York, one of New York's most stylish people. I mean, you've been featured in Nylon. You've been in the New York Times Sunday magazine. You've been called by Elle Girl the guru of DIY fashion. How do you feel about working with the press, and do you consider yourself stylish? How did you feel when you were on the cover of that?
Yeah, I mean, I love clothes. I do consider myself stylish, I guess. And just enjoy getting dressed. I think it's like part of like, you know, your life as my life as an artist, is just like waking up and getting to put together these, outfits and stuff. So, but yeah, I always am excited by press. I mean, who doesn't want to be, in a magazine? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's fun, and it's like, I feel like early on, was when press was still on, paper. So it was even more exciting to like, you were in Rolling Stone or, EIS would be on the cover of Spin, that was like all things like that, where you're just like, mind was so blown by the, like, fact that you could walk into the subway station and see your friends, and on the cover and, in your outfit. So it's like, I always love it. I think it's fun. It's just like a special treat,
Do you mind, for this special guest who asked again about the paint, could you just repeat? I think this person missed it and maybe now has a pen.
Yeah. It's just Speedball fabric ink, or screen printing ink. That's all it is that I use to print. Yeah.
Do you spend money on clothing? Like, do you buy like a $300 cashmere thing, and where do you spend your money when it comes to clothing?
I have a really soft spot for tennis shoes.
Okay.
I think that's like my mainly I buy used clothing or, like consignment. I do love going to the vintage fair and like, looking for really unique pieces. I mean, I love clothes, it's like, but what I really love is like, finding like those really weird special pieces, that nobody has, or like I'll buy Comme des Garçons if I have the money and I find it, on, for fairly cheap. I don't have a lot of money, so it's like I can't really like spend a ton, but I try to do it.
What's your favorite sneaker brand? Someone's asking.
Everyone's gonna be like, "You're a jerk. You're a sellout." I love Nikes.
Christina loves, well, maybe it isn't Christina. I think she probably loves Nike too. But one of my other friends actually who has like clubbed feet, she loves Nikes too.
I think it's just a thing from like being like, in grade school, and my friends would always have Nikes that I wanted a pair so bad, and like I couldn't afford them. So I think now it's just, plus it's just like I was just saying to my husband, Nike really has like the best logo. Like, they just, I think they look cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It matches everything.
Yeah, and they just keep coming up with all these crazy ones. So you're like, God. I mean,
yeah. It is sort of like the living sneaker meme. Can you tell us just a couple of your favorite consignment shops in New York? I mean, by the way, disclaimer, I grew up in New York. I used to thrift and consign shop a lot. So, like I loved, what was it? Tokyo 17?
Tokyo 7. Yeah.
Then I went in recently and it got like way worse than when I was in high school, but we used to find really good stuff there.
I found a margin skirt in there for $35 one time, which was like amazing.
Yes, it used to be like cheap and amazing, and now it's like really died. It's like not, I don't know, maybe it's changing with quarantine, but
I find a lot of really good stuff at Beacon's Closet actually. I found tons of good stuff there. I also love, there's a vintage store called James Valoria that I really, really love. That's in Chinatown, and they always have just like lots of just really amazing pieces. I mean, I think a lot of theirs is kind of more like, it's like, Yohji Yamamoto and Comme des Garçons and, all this kind of stuff from the 90s, but it's like, they have such great stuff. That's one of my favorite places.
What about online? Like, by the way, I saw that you had an Etsy store. You still have one, but I don't see any clothes on your Etsy store. So what, do you shop on Etsy? Are you planning to add anything to your Etsy shop?
I kind of had it up there because I thought maybe people would buy more stuff off the Etsy store. But really, I just kind of sell everything from my own store. I don't use Etsy or eBay a lot. I'm not really like into buying clothes online. I like being able to go into a store and like feel things or get things. And I like to converse with people about what I'm buying, so. Yeah,
that's cool. I read just like a random example in an article where you're in L, and it's like 19,000 people show up at the Barclays Center for a concert. And, this woman, I think it was Karen O in this instance, is wearing a suit that you crafted. So what is that like? You get this audience looking at your piece. Everyone's snapping pictures in the first few minutes. You've described it that way. And now all of a sudden you have 19,000 people who sort of have an eye on your aesthetic. Did they end up converting into a fan base? I mean, how did that work as someone who makes clothes to have an audience that's sort of ephemeral and there for one night?
Right. I mean, you know, like, I think some people care, you know, it's like some people care about the clothes and some people don't care, you know, and so it's like, I think, you know, like I definitely, you know, fans of Yaya's definitely, you know, become fans of mine as well. If they're into that stuff, you know, I don't think like, it translates completely. And also, you know, I think like for a long time, I didn't actually get a lot of work because people thought that I would only make stuff that looked like Karen O. So they were kind of worried about like using, you know, asking me to make things. And it wasn't actually until I started working with Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes that I started to get more work. And so that was years later.
Uh-huh.
So,
right. Someone asked about your favorite painters, and I love that because your background really is as an artist more so than as a costume designer. So who do you love?
I love, oh God, that's such a funny question. I guess David Hockney I really like. I'm trying to look at my books that I have here in my shelf. I don't know. Stuart Davis. I have a book on Stuart Davis. Like, I think there's like Sonia Delaunay. She's like one of my favorites as well. You know, I think anybody who uses Carrie James, my husband's like yelling in. Carrie James Marshall as actually one of my very, very favorites. And I think it's Micheline Thomas. She's also one of my favorites. I remember she had one of this like really beautiful like painting / kind of like collage outside the MoMA. I think it was like, you know, the MoMA has like that hotel or whatever next door. And every time I would see that thing, I was like, oh, I loved it so much. And it would just make me just like, you know, that envy that you feel in your heart where you're like, oh my God, like this is just like the most beautiful, like piece of artwork ever, you know? And so that was definitely another one that I really loved.
Do you get like an exploding creative vision and then you're like, all right, I'm going to turn this into a costume? And do you ever feel like you need other media? Like you're like, I have to go into film because like I can't do this in cloth. Is that how it works in your brain?
Yeah, I guess, you know, yeah, I guess so. Like I'll get like really, sort of like, it's like this kind of weird, I don't even know how to describe it, like overheated feeling, you know, of like needing to make this thing where it's like, I become like really just totally obsessed, you know? So it's like, when I first started painting, it was like this just desire that was so strong and it was just like overwhelming. I couldn't sleep and I couldn't, you know, I would have to get up and keep doing it, you know, and working at it. And so I do think like there's moments that I have that are like that, where I just get like it's like a fever pitch of excitement, you know? So I can't remember the rest of the question. Sorry.
It's so strange. Like when I look at you and I like look at your work, I'm just like, you know, there is a chance that like you will be a name that like we know for 200 years, you know, like what is that? Like, do you keep that out of your head? Like, I know you've been around so many musicians, like probably the majority of musicians, you know, didn't get famous. And then like, there are some that like became household names. And like, when you think of yourself and your creativity in relation to fame, like, is fame something that inspires you? Does it hurt your creative process? Do you keep it out of your head?
I think, I mean, honestly, like I remember being like younger and thinking, you know, what I want is to like have an influence on the world, you know, and that's really what I want the most. And just sort of like, you know, I was always kind of like thought about my parents who maybe wouldn't be able to understand, like, say some forms of artwork, and that I kind of wanted to be able to create something that touched a lot of people. So, I mean, that was always what I wanted more than anything else, was to be able to like make things that maybe made people excited or happy, you know? And so I think that was a lot to do with it. And yes, definitely, like, I'm definitely driven by the idea that I want people to see my work, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not driven by money because I don't make any money, you know, so it's like, you know, so I think that's definitely a driving force. It's just, I think it's exciting. It's fun. I love seeing how people react to my work, you know, getting to show it in so many different ways. So,
what's the name of art which you are using these days? How would you describe the art that you're making these days? Maybe that's another way to say it.
I guess, well, I was kind of making these like weird sort of religious paintings that were like, because I was thought, well, I should explore like, you know, this idea of growing up born again Christian, and I was trying to kind of do it through kind of looking at medieval artwork as well. So that was something that I was doing, that I was finding to be really interesting. And then, you know, I have to say this whole thing happened, and it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. So I kind of feel like, to me, it's like, well, what is this thing that I should be concentrating on? Or, you know, what is it I want to express right now? So it's like, it really kind of like flipped everything on its head, you know? And I feel like it's important to be able to, not necessarily that you only have to create art that has to do with the moment, but like, I think it's important to be able to think about it and be able to express it. And like, I think when I think about like artists who are good at that kind of stuff, we're friends with Marcel Dezama, and he just he's been making this really beautiful work that it sort of expresses the moment. And then he did this painting on top of the New York Times the other day of Trump with this golf clubs and stuff. And I just thought like, wow, it's so fucking amazing. Like, you know, it really nailed it, you know, and so effortlessly and stuff. So I guess like, you know, I'm kind of feel like not necessarily that I want to make political art or like art like that, but I think like, you know, it's definitely making me think about how I want to keep creating, you know.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I was planning to ask you, and I think it's interesting from now that in the context that we're in right now, like, what is the quarantine costume? Like, is there, I mean, I think when people are asking that in a kind of mainstream way, it's like, we're thinking of like sweatpants and kind of like coexistence and being inside and not needing to wear sunscreen. But from a costume director's point of view, what idea does that spark when I ask about like, what's the quarantine costume?
I've actually been thinking a lot about that. Like, if I take it from my personal point of view, I kind of try to, at first I was like, kind of like, you know, and sort of slubbing it with like, you know, leggings or whatever. And then I kind of realized like, okay, you know, what I really do love is fashion and like, you know, making clothes and being and feeling like empowered. So it's like, I think like for me, it's been like these jumpsuits or colors and things like that. But I think at least in New York, I kind of feel like people are maybe starting to pick up with style again, you know, where they're wanting to like, you know, maybe they have their mask, but they're always also wanting to express, you know, just try to feel good, you know?
Yeah.
I think like, and I don't know what that would look like. I always think about that because it's like, you know, like where I watched Mad Max Fury Road the other day and just what they had on and stuff. And it really made me think like, God, what would people, you know, really, what should you be designing right now that would be an expression of how people want to dress, you know? And I'm sure a lot of people are like dying to make sweatpants, you know?
There are a lot of them selling on Instagram, that's for sure. But I think there is this like deep psyche craving to like experiment with being colorful and extra, and even if it's just a way of expressing like the excruciating pain of the moment, like clothing can do that for us too. I love this question that comes from a friend of mine in San Francisco who's also, you know, she's very much like a laboring artist, and she certainly doesn't work for money, and she's just awesome in many ways. And she says, what do you charge for a performance costume? Do you charge per hour of labor?
I usually just charge like, no, I usually charge thinking about like, yeah, kind of in a way. It sort of depends. I have to think about like, you know, who's going to be assisting me and, you know, how much I need to pay them. I need to think about like how much I'm spending on, you know, fabrics and all of the materials. And then how long, you know, like most of what I make has a lot of like stuff that's really does take a long time. So like creating like a new print, you know, it's like I need to like take that into consideration and, you know, how long that's going to take me, you know, because it's like, it's not just necessarily like designing the silhouette, you know, it's also designing this like fabric that's going to be just totally individual and unique to that person. So I think like I do think about how much time it's going to take and charge for that. But then I think on top of it, you know, you have to charge for your ideas, you know, and all of that as well. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not great at it, but I think it's, you know, I think it's important because it's like, you're also like helping to create a look for someone that, you know, people follow.
People, our audience right now is very practical. And I got to say, I love that kind of thing, but don't feel pressured at all. Someone says, what's the most you sold a piece for? I think because a lot of these people are also, you know, costume designers and they want to get a sense what they can, you know.
I mean, I feel funny. I don't think I want to say.
Yeah, no problem.
I think you should charge what, you know, what you think, you know, I mean, it's, you know, like you need to think about how much time you are putting into something and, you know, charge accordingly.
Yeah. It's great questions. Okay. Your name. So you grew up with a name, is Joy your middle name?
Joy is my middle name. Yeah.
Okay. And so like, if you just Google Christian Joy, you get a lot of like religious stuff. So, I mean, is that part of what, like, tell us a little bit. I actually happen to have changed my name at a certain point in my life. It was like a small edit. And in some ways, I think yours is sort of a small edit. But what was the process for you of like knowing that that would be the name that you'd kind of go forward with creatively?
Well, I think I just remember, you know, being like in the beginning, I thought like, oh, I'll call it Christian girl or Christian boy, you know, thinking about like that idea of like, oh, she's a good Christian girl, you know, and then it occurred to me like, God, I have like the best name ever. This name is so bizarre. And so
it is a beautiful name.
So, yeah, thanks. So but you know, my first name actually usually has an E at the end. So it's, you know, and my mom always jokes, she always says, Christian Joy, Lord told me not to put that E at the end of your name because nobody will ever be able to say your name right. So when I first started off, I think I did have the E, and then I removed it because I thought, you know what, nobody's ever going to understand it. And for a long time in the beginning, people thought I was a man was the other thing because my name is Christian. So I think like, yeah, I kind of tweaked it, but I just thought, God, this is like the funniest. I just thought it was funny. It was a funny name. It was such a great name. And, you know, the fact that my mom, like nobody else in my family has a name like that. So,
yeah.
You know.
You have, you told us that you've started to make sort of like religious, you know, musing pieces where that theme is coming up in your life. Is that part of like some kind of faith experience or like, you know, metaphysical experience you've had, or where does that inspiration come from to work with symbols from religious cultures?
Well, my mom is very religious. So, you know, it's something I grew up with all that symbology and so I think like, or symbolism, sorry. So I think that it came from there, you know, and I started to think about, and a lot of it has to do with like sort of this mother figure too, of like how, you know, the mom has always kind of got her eyeballs on you no matter where you're at, and sort of just like what it's like to be sort of this kid, you know, and like how, you know, a lot of it actually has to do with like sort of like feelings, thinking about my mom and, you know, where, you know, and things like that. So it's more kind of like, I was kind of thinking a lot about that, like how I grew up and how her life has affected my life, you know, and the lives of. So I think that's kind of where it came from.
Definitely a possibility. I mean, my mom is also very religious, and we're kind of like struggling right now, you know. I mean, did you have parents that always supported you in every kind of creative and romantic move you made?
No, not at all. And I think that's like, you know, I kind of feel like I was really going at it on my own for so long. Like they wouldn't even, you know, if I was in like a magazine, they'd sort of shrug it off, you know? So my siblings were excited about it, but my parents were sort of like, didn't really think that highly of it. You know, it wasn't like something that was important. So.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself to be fearless?
In some, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have anybody to answer to. I think I only have to answer to myself. And I think that's what, you know, it's like, doesn't make me, again, like a ton of money, but it's like, I also don't have to like worry about like, you know, answering to someone, you know? So I think that allows me to be fearless. Is like, you know, just that, you know, it's like, it's only me. And like, you know, if somebody doesn't like it, then they don't like it, you know?
Yeah. What about passionate? Like, do you consider yourself to be like a passionate person?
Yeah, definitely very passionate. Yeah. I mean, I just get like really, I mean, you can ask my husband. It's like, I just get really obsessed with something. And then, you know, I kind of can't think of anything else. And, you know, and I feel very passionate about, you know, everything, you know, that I make, that I create, you know, I think it's important to feel that way. So.
Yeah. Someone's asking, how old were you when you started working with Karen?
I think I was 26 or 27. Yeah. So my career started a little later. Like, it really wasn't, again, until I moved to New York that I feel like it started to happen. So I get that question a lot, actually. Like, you know, like, people thinking like, it's like they're getting too old, you know, to like start doing something. And it's like, to me, I think it's like, I think it turned out to be better, you know, than I was a little.
You know, I thought like the moment when I knew to reach out to you and start following you is like, I mean, I still have it screenshotted from my Kindle. It's like you're being interviewed and meet me in the bathroom. And somebody like Asif Ahmed, I don't know if he's like a Rolling Stone.
Asif Ahmed.
Yeah, he's like, he basically was like, you know, the scene, like Christian basically like created so much of the aesthetic of that time of like, for people who aren't like in that time right now, but it's like the Strokes, Interpol, like kind of coming off of like Blondie, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Moldy Peaches, all of those bands. Like you were kind of like the loudest costume designer and like aesthetic presence in the space. How do you, when you think of like the Strokes aesthetic versus yours, like was yours in reaction to that in any way?
No, not at all. I think, I mean, what I did, you know, I never even paid attention to the other bands, quite honestly. I just was kind of like, you know, they were there, but I was like mainly really excited to be working with Karen, you know, and that like, that she really allowed me to kind of just do what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's such an amazing relationship to have with someone, because it's like, you know, you have this maniac on stage and, you know, it's so inspiring to see her like on stage, you know, doing her thing. I mean, from every moment. So it's like, for me, it was really exciting to just be able to, you know, create for this person who was like so willing, you know, all the time to kind of to wear what you made, you know, no matter what. I mean, there was some stuff that was just hideously ugly, and I remember she would just wear it anyway, you know, which is amazing. So I mean, I think, you know, that was just like, I think we just lived in our own little world, you know. I don't think like, I don't feel like I influenced, like, I mean, I feel like ultimately there was an influence, but like, you know, it was more of the fans, like Yaya's fans and stuff like that.
Well, I love so many things that you're saying. Like it came up continuously throughout the book that like Karen was really like a spiritual presence for people in that scene at that time, because she made people feel liberated. Like she let people be themselves because she was so herself and she was so emotional and vulnerable and there and present. And I love that. Like we all, you know, we all hope to have someone like that in our lives or be that for other people. Kasha, who's actually, we have questions here. So, Kasha, who's a filmmaker in LA, she says, I think Dapper Dan is still making stuff in New York and he's been around for ages. I think you will be busy for the next 80 years.
Oh, that's sweet. Dapper Dan's so freaking amazing. I'm so glad that he's getting some love again, because it's like, definitely, you know, I've like seen his work for so long, and it's a, you know, I'm glad. I mean, it's weird the way it came about, but like, I think it's exciting to see his work, you know, still out there.
Wait, what was weird about the way it came about?
I think didn't Gucci like rip him off or something, and then like I thought that was the case. I mean, maybe I could be wrong.
Fun.
But I think they sent
Really
a
get
jacket
into
down
that.
the runway that looked like Dapper Dan's, and everyone was like, But
Yeah.
me and my wife
Yeah.
like that.
I'm going to get back to questions. I just have to ask you, like, we're in such a weird creative historical moment, and all of us are spending more time on social media. Who are you following among artists where you're like, damn, that's fun to look at every day, or that makes me laugh, or that's inspiring?
You know, one of my favorites is I don't even, what is Akiko's last name? It's my friend Akiko. Her Instagram is Doy Rivetive, and she makes these she's just this incredible movie poster, creator, and like she's just insane. Like, her work is just totally genius. She has a new book out, but like she also does these really hilarious Instagram stories that are all just like these memes. And I mean, honestly, like, you know, I love a good meme, so I'm totally down for that.
Yeah.
Her Instagram is definitely my favorite. Like, I look at it every day and just get excited about it because she's like, I just want to laugh, basically.
What about movies and books? Have you been reading anything or watching anything amazing?
I'm terrible at reading books, actually. What have I been watching? No, I guess I haven't really been watching a lot of TV. Have you seen what's that?
Have you seen, I'm thinking, is it Portrait of a Lady on Fire? Have you seen that?
No, but my friend Akiko made that poster, actually. And so I should, yeah. So that's yeah, I need to watch that, actually. I heard
really
it's like good.
Yeah. I love that. Are you into like the fashion documentaries? Like, did you watch like House of Z and?
Yeah, I love all that stuff. I mean, I watched actually this documentary on YouTube about, it was like just the atelier at Christian Dior making this like crazy Galliano dress and coat, you know, for one of his last collections. And I love stuff like that, where it's like you can sit there and watch like the people like sewing it and like creating it, you know. It's just like, it's like all the different layers. I mean, it went on for like I don't know how long it took them to make, like several months to make like this jacket and skirt, and so I love stuff like that.
What kind of assistance do you take on when making a piece?
Well, I have an assistant, Caitlin, who works with me a lot. She started with me when she was like 18, and she's like 28 now. So she's just kind of, you know, the reason I work with her so much is just she knows who I am, you know, and she understands, and she just kind of puts her head down and goes and does the work. And so, I mean, really what I think has made me just go back to her over and over again is like that she's really a hard worker. She shows up on time, and you know, she gets my brain, you know, so it's like I don't ever have any trouble kind of asking her to do things, or you know, she knows pretty immediately. So
what do you when you were in the Victoria and Albert Museum, was that how did they call you and let you know that they wanted to feature you in that collection? Or exhibit, we should say.
An email. A stylist recommended me for it, and I got an email about it, and then and so that's basically kind of how it came about. At that point, I thought Karen was making all her own stuff. So at the opening, people were like, Karen, like, oh, that was great, you did such a great job. And Karen was like, oh, this is Christian, she actually made it. So it was funny, you know.
Which artist are you? We have less than, maybe I have a minute left, so I just want to ask you what people have been asking you instead of my own questions. But which artist are you dying to work with?
I think I've worked with the artist that I'm dying to work with, Karen. Okay. Karen, that's like the easiest. Yeah.
What's your inspiration for design aesthetic?
Oh, I look at so much stuff. I love looking at old like rock and roll 70s stuff, or you know, just any of those moments where people were just really going crazy, and you know,
Is your house like littered with canvases that are like half done?
Yeah, I mean, I think our whole house is just basically like a giant workshop. So
nice. Who is your favorite sister-in-law?
Amy Salas.
Is that genuinely your sister-in-law?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Is that Navajo Ninja? Is that Amy?
What's that?
Is that Amy, Navajo Ninja?
Yeah, it's Amy.
Sweet. Oh, that's so nice. Oh, you're so great to meet. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries.
I hope people will follow you, and I am going to probably DM you cautiously here and there because I'm a big fan. And thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, have a great day.
You
Okay,
too.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.